Guys, it's Vandy. So back again for another Future Card Buddy Fight video. I hope you guys enjoy. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and donate to Patreon. And let's get started. So for the record, if you guys hear thunder coming from the background, that is because it right now is storming Hawaii. Talking about storming a paradise, right? So just ignore that because I can't blur that out. So anyways, this deck is my Drenite deck from basically the trial deck that I opened up in the Future Card Buddy Fight unboxing video of Drenite, and it's upgraded with a bunch of random stuff I happen to shove into it at the moment. So this deck is based off of G-Boost. There's no G-Boost Will, G-Boost Craft stuff in this deck. It is just pure out G-Boost base. It's just that one. So let's go ahead and get started. As you guys can see, the flag is obviously Dragon Rolled. Because of Garga's Dragon God effect, legally you don't have to use him in Dragon Road. You could use him in Magic Road. You could use him in Cotton Road. You could use an Ancient Road. You can use in anything else. But I'm choosing to use Dragon Road because it's the only deck I have currently that has Dragon God support that I'm willing to shove it into. So now on to get to its abilities. So 7k power, it's a size 2 by the way. 7k power, 3k defense, a critical of 2. Dragon God, like I said, can be used with all flags. Call cost, pay a gauge and put the top card of deck into its soul. G-Boost base, its special ability. At the start of the attack phase, for this turn, all cards on your field get plus 10k power, including this card. Then, if another DD Dragon Tribe is on your field, all DD Dragon Tribe on your field get plus 1 critical. It has double attack and soul guard. So for its ability to go off and give everything an extra crit, you simply have to have another DD Dragon Tribe on your field. And set spells and items count towards that too if they happen to have the attribute. So, let's move on to our size zeros. Starting off with our size 0 buddy, Awakened Deity Dragon Gargazelle. 2k power, 1k defense, a critical of 1. When it enters the field, for this turn, a Deity Dragon Tribe on your field gets plus 5k power. You can give it to anything. A lot of cards in this deck have a base power of 5k, and all of them have abilities where, like, when it hits 10k or greater power, do X, and some other stuff. So, it's helpful because on place, you don't have to give its power to itself, you can give it to anything else, and that can make a really good first turn. I remember I got like a total of 4 life and 2 extra hand cards out of using Gargazelle and one of my items in this deck. So, really helpful card, because it can also give it to an item, so makes it useful, and all those 5k powers don't go to waste since you don't have to rely on Garga to get them done. Size 1, since I was only size 0. 2 copies of Awakened Deity, Dolce Gardra. 5k power, 2 critical, 1k defense, size 1, like I said. Pay a gauge to call it. When this card enters the field, if it has 10k, when it attacks, if it has 10k or greater power, destroy all monsters on the opponent's field. That is very useful, especially compared to the original version of it, which was literally a 5k vanilla. This one is better, because even though, yes, you have to pay a gauge to call it, which is kind of bad for size 1, depending on how you see it, that literally says, on attack, destroy everything on your opponent's field. One of my favorite cards, and if a card on your opponent's field has Soul Guard and you're hitting with it, it dies once and then it revives to a Soul Guard and then it's probably gonna die again since this thing has over 10,000 power at least. Next up, 2 copies of Awakened Deity Dragon, Mount Gardra. 5k power, 1 critical, 1k defense. When it attacks, if it has 10k or greater power, for this turn it gets plus 2 critical, 3 crit with Penetrate. So that's very useful. I also use this card with Gargazelle because that was the first turn, 3 crit smack to the face. Really useful, and it can just wipe out your opponent. Need that extra rush if your cards aren't good enough? Here's your boy. 2 copies, because I don't have any more. I would suggest maybe running 4. Either put them in your side deck maybe. 2 copies of Mount Gardra, the OG. So 3k power, 1 critical, and 2k defense. When a monster on your opponent's field is destroyed, put the top card deck into your gauge and gain a life. Now I run this card for 2 reasons. 1, it gives you life, and this deck likes gaining life, so it can at least hang on. 2, it likes getting gauge, because as I've discovered when I was playtesting, I've had 2 problems. 1, hand problem. 2, gauge problem. I could not fix the hand problem with everything I had, so I just focused on the gauge. Fixing that gauge problem really helps because so far since I've edited this deck, I have not had a single gauge problem. And also I just get a bunch of life and then I don't die. It also has moves, so if you need a defender and you just need to clear up your field, he's your guy. Last size 1, 4 copies of Garbird. 4k power, 2 critical, 1k defense. Pay a gauge and put the top card deck into its soul. all DD Dragon Tribes on your field get plus 3k power permanently as long as this thing's on the field. And it also has Soul Guard. Now that is useful to an extent because, yeah, it doesn't really hit the numbers that you need to because it only makes cards a total 8k power with these normal ones. So it's not that good. But if you don't have a Guard Gazelle and if you don't have one of the spells, at least it's helping you hit for numbers. And even if you do get Garga and then all that stuff out and yet you still can't get over your opponent's defenses for whatever reason, that extra 3k should be able to. Otherwise, you're probably playing Max Dragons and you weren't going to get over it anyway. So, just how life rolls sometimes. 2 copies of our first size 2 Awakened DD Dragon Laufin Guard Dragon. 6k power, 2 critical, 2k defense. Pay a gauge and put the top card of deck into its soul. When this card is destroyed, put the top card of deck into your gauge and you gain a life. It has Soul Guard and move. So 1, it can act like a defender and an attacker, which is good. And then 2, when it dies, you gain a gauge and a life. So 1, it fixes the gauge problem. So you're effectively gaining a gauge after it dies since you already paid 1 gauge cost. And then 2, you just gain life. So it's being defensive. So your opponents have to waste 2 attacks on it. And if either of them have penetrate, you've got a free 2 life and a free extra 2 gauge. So really useful. Last size 2 being our buddy, Awakened DD Gargantua Dragon at 4 copies. Because that's how it rolls. Our last monster, and at size 3, 2 copies of Evolution Blaze Garflame Dragon. The card that has saved me so many times against the Dragon deck that I can't even count at this point. 6k power, 6k defense, critical of 2. Pay 2 gauge. When this card enters the field, destroy a monster in the opponent's field. Counter, you can call this card from your hand by paying its call cost. Yeah, okay, so I know some people probably will never run this card in their deck and their whole entire life, probably not even in their side deck, especially because of its gauge cost, and that's a size 3. But considering the amount of times I would have lost if I didn't have this card in my hand, I've decided that I'm just going to keep this in until I find something better. But that thing has saved me so many times against the Dragon deck that at this point, I kind of feel like I am the king of all buddy fighters, because I've just always had that. Size 3's for life. Garflame forever. Now into our spells. 2 copies of Garlit. It's lit, y'all. I probably made that joke before, and now I've said it again, and I'm a horrible person for even trying. For this turn, all DD Dragon type on your field get plus 10k power. That is useful, because it just is Garga for you, except minus the extra crit, but at least it hits your numbers, which is amazing. But unfortunately, I only have 2. I would suggest running it at 4 and then getting rid of one of these next few cards I'm about to show you for it. But yeah. Okay, so 2 copies of Loud Voice. Okay, before anyone says anything about me not using Loud Voice at 4 in this deck, because I'm pretty sure I can, I'm choosing to do this at 2 because in my personal opinion, I feel like this deck works without 4 Loud Voices. But tell me your guys' opinion, and I will probably switch that around when I figure it out. So, Loud Voice. Dropped 1 or more cards from your hand. Counter. For this turn, all cards on your opponent's field lose 3k power and 3k defense, and 1 critical for each card discarded by this card's cast cost. That is useful, because that just means, screw you. It's immediately 3k loss power and critical and defense. So if you want to use this as aggressive, you can. But I mean, let's be fair. If you're going to use it as defense, even if your opponent has exactly enough crit to end you, just discarding 1 card for its cost immediately says, screw you, you can't end me unless you got an impact. Aha, I win. Next up, up to 2 copies of Blue Dragon Shield. I'm running this, like I said, for the gauge problem. You may only cast this card during an attack on the opponent's turn if you have no monster on your center, nullify the attack, and gain 1 gauge. All of you should know that since this is Blue Dragon Shield, and this has literally been around since the beginning of the game. And if you don't know that, well, you're probably new to the game. 2 copies of the newest Dragon Shield, though, that I like the art of and skill of. DD Purple Dragon Shield. You may only cast this card during an attack on the opponent's turn if you have no monsters on your center and you have a DD Dragon Tribe on your field. Counter. Nullify the attack. Put the top card of your deck into your gauge and gain a life. Then, if you have a Dragon in your field, you get to draw 1. So much helpful, because that's so much more helpful than Blue Dragon Shield, because not only do you get a gauge, but you get a life, and you have the possibility of a draw, which could save you. 4 copies of DD Green Dragon Shield. One of the best shields in the game, in my personal opinion. You may only cast this card during attack on the opponent's turn, if you have no monsters on your center, and you have a DD Dragon Tribe on your field. Nullify the attack, and you gain 3 life. Easy, you nullify the attack, and since most monsters only have a crit of 2 or 1, that means you effectively nullify 2 attacks in one blow, and the possibility of 3 if your opponent happens to have 2 crit monsters and then 1 crit monster, and they happen to attack 2 crit first. Next up, 4 copies of Boost On. In our last spell, by the way. You may cast this card if you have a DD Dragon Tribe on your field. Once you can only use it once per turn, and you choose one of the following 2 effects. Either gain 3 gauge or gain 3 life. If all of you do not know what Gar Highland is, it is essentially the same thing, but not once per turn, and you have to kill a DD Dragon Tribe on your field, anything. But if you do, you gain 4 gauge and 4 life, and it's a counter. This one, I don't have Gar Highland. I was planning on buying it, because it's extremely cheap. But this one is a good substitute for it, and I just also like the art. Literally, if I had to pick one card from this trial deck to keep, this would be the one I keep. Screw everything else in this trial deck. I do not care about anything else in this trial deck. The sole reason I bought this trial deck in the first place was just to have that card. 4 copies of our first item, DD Dragon Sword, Gar Saber. 5k power, 1 critical, pay a gauge. When this card attacks and destroys your opponent's monster or deals damage to your opponent, if you have a DD Dragon Trap on your field, draw a card. All of you may question, why am I running this in my deck? It was introduced in the first trial deck of Ace. Here's why. Because for the sole reason when I said earlier, I have a hand problem. I run this so that I can refill my hand easier, and unlike the other item where it actually has to hit a power cost for it to actually let me draw, this one, as long as it hits something, I get to draw one, which is good, because they're most likely going to let a 1 crit, more likely 1 crit / 2 crit attack hit at most points in time. And if they don't, that's probably because they're at 2 life, and it has 1 critical, and they'll debate whether, is it worth blocking this just so they don't draw, especially if they're at 0 hand cards, or do I just take it and let them draw since it's a 1 crit attack? Well, that's up to them, gives them pressure, and it makes it really weird for them to defend it either way. And a long game too, so I appreciate that card existing. Our last item, and the one that actually belongs to this trial deck normally, 4 copies of DD Dragon Beam Sword, Garnet Saber. I do like the art of this. 5k power, 2 critical, pay a gauge to a crit. When it attacks, you gain a life, so that's good. And then, if this card's power is 10k or greater, draw one. That's useful. You get to draw, and you gain a life if its power is 10k or greater. But either way, you guaranteed to gain a life. It's just hopefully you get to draw one, which can make you draw into an impact, draw into a shield just in case you don't finish your opponent that turn, draw into another Garga just in case they happen to kill it during their turn. Yeah, it's all that stuff. Finally, 4 copies of our very last card in our very own impact, Dragod Strike. You may only cast this card if your opponent has 4 life or less, and there are no monsters on your opponent's center. So you can have one in your center, but you can't have one, but they can't have one on their center. And you've used G-Boost during this turn. That goes to any G-Boost. You can use G-Boost Will, G-Boost Craft, G-Boost Base. As long as you use G-Boost during this turn, it meets the requirements. Pay 2 gauge, deal 4 damage. Unfortunately, it can be reduced, it can be nullified, so there is a chance they will stop this, but looking on the bright side, at least it's only 2 gauge, and you can use this with literally any deck. If you cannot buy the first set where G-Boost was introduced for whatever reason, at least you can buy the other 2 and still be able to use this impact, because it's that flexible. Well, that was the video. I hope you guys enjoyed. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, join Patreon, suggest to me any other decks you want me to build. Give me feedback on this deck so I can fix it to the best of my ability. And I'll see you all in the next one. Don't forget to raise your flag. Can you pull a Buddy Rare card?